At 7 years old, he drove custom-built luxury cars. At 11, he wore a miniature military uniform with a loaded Colt 45 pistol and vacationed in the Swiss Alps. By the time he took power, every general who stood beside his father's coffin had disappeared. His personal fortune is hidden across 200 secret bank accounts in at least 6 countries. His hackers have stolen over $5 billion in cryptocurrency, and the country he controls sits on mineral reserves worth between $6 and $10 trillion. This is not a Bond villain. This is Kim Jong Un, the supreme leader of North Korea, and the question of how rich he actually is has no clean answer, because the line between personal wealth and national resources does not exist when you are the absolute ruler of a nuclear-armed state where 45% of the population is starving. Watch until the end, because what you are about to discover about the financial architecture of the Kim dynasty will redefine your understanding of what wealth means when it operates beyond the reach of every law, every sanction, and every institution designed to prevent one man from owning an entire country. The inheritance, a childhood built on gold, guns, and false passports. The story of Kim Jong Un's wealth does not begin with his ascension to power. It begins in a childhood so saturated with privilege that it makes the upbringing of Western billionaire heirs look austere by comparison. Born officially on the 8th of January 1983, though even this date is disputed, because in the Kim dynasty, even birthdays are classified information. Kim was the third son of Kim Jong Il, raised inside the Ryongseong residence in Pyongyang, a palatial compound featuring private theaters, bowling alleys, spas, a horse racing track, and every amenity that absolute power can requisition from a captive economy. As a child, Kim drove luxury European cars custom-built to accommodate his size. Banquets featured imported delicacies. A fleet of limousines and a private armored train provided transportation. Vacations to the Swiss Alps, the French Riviera, and other destinations that no ordinary North Korean citizen will ever see were conducted on false passports under heavy security, with senior regime officials facilitating every movement. Kim attended school in Bern, Switzerland, under the alias Pak Un, living in conditions described as modest by European standards, but extraordinary by any North Korean measure. His passions were basketball and American culture. He collected Michael Jordan memorabilia and developed a fascination with the NBA that would later manifest in one of the most bizarre diplomatic episodes of the 21st century. The use of false passports was a family tradition. Kim Jong-il maintained multiple identities for international travel, and the practice extended to his children as a matter of operational security and regime survival. The childhood was not merely privileged. It was engineered, designed to produce a leader who understood luxury, expected obedience, and viewed the resources of an entire nation as his personal inheritance. The succession was not guaranteed. Kim's older half-brother, Kim Jong-nam, had been the favored heir until a 2001 scandal involving a fake passport and an attempted trip to Tokyo Disneyland embarrassed the regime and cost him his position. When Kim Jong-il died in December 2011, it was the third son, quiet, basketball-obsessed, Swiss-educated, who inherited control of the military, the economy, the nuclear program, and a personal financial infrastructure designed to ensure that the Kim dynasty's wealth would survive, regardless of what happened to the country it ruled. The generals who carried Kim Jong-il's coffin, the men who represented the military establishment's power, have all since been removed from their positions. Several have disappeared entirely. The consolidation was swift, thorough, and merciless. Within 2 years of taking power, Kim Jong-un was not merely the leader of North Korea, he was North Korea. When every general who attended a funeral disappears within 2 years, is that political consolidation or something darker? Share your analysis in the comments. The hidden fortune, 200 bank accounts, 6 countries, and no oversight. The most frequently cited estimate of Kim Jong-un's personal net worth is $5 billion, a figure published in 2013 that ranked him just behind Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump among the wealthiest world leaders. But that number is over a decade old, and every credible analysis of Kim's financial position suggests that the current figure is substantially higher. The difficulty is that Kim's wealth is not held in publicly traded stocks, real estate portfolios, or corporate equity that can be valued through standard financial analysis. It is hidden, distributed across at least 200 secret bank accounts in countries including Austria, Switzerland, Luxembourg, China, Singapore, and Russia, often maintained under fake identities and routed through smaller, less regulated banks, specifically chosen to avoid the scrutiny that major international financial institutions face under anti-money laundering regulations. But the personal fortune is only a fraction of what Kim actually controls. In 2024, North Korea's GDP was estimated between $26.6 and $32 billion, and every dollar of that output is controlled by Kim, with no oversight, no accountability, and no institutional check on how the money is spent. There are no independent auditors in North Korea. There is no parliament with budgetary authority. There is no free press to investigate or expose financial mismanagement. The entire economic output of a nation of 26 million people flows through a system that answers to a single individual, and that individual has demonstrated repeatedly that he views the national treasury and his personal bank accounts as functionally identical. Beneath the economy lies a resource base of almost incomprehensible value. North Korea's untapped mineral reserves, including rare earth elements, coal, iron ore, gold, and magnesite, are estimated at between $6 trillion and $10 trillion. These resources cannot currently be extracted at scale due to infrastructure limitations and international sanctions, but they represent a latent fortune that transforms North Korea from one of the poorest countries on Earth by GDP into one of the wealthiest by potential resource value. Kim controls those resources absolutely. No mining company operates in North Korea without regime authorization. No extraction revenue flows to any entity outside the regime's control. The mineral wealth sits beneath the surface, like a savings account that cannot be accessed today, but whose existence guarantees that whoever controls North Korea controls a future fortune measured in trillions, and the person who controls North Korea is a single man with no successor, no oversight, and no intention of sharing. The Revenue Machine Office, 39, state hackers, and billions from crime. The most distinctive feature of Kim Jong Un's financial empire is not its size, it is its source. Because while every other national leader on the planet generates revenue through taxation, trade, and investment, Kim operates a parallel economy built entirely on criminal enterprise, and it is managed with the precision and institutional support of a government ministry. The centerpiece is Office 39, a secretive bureau within the Workers' Party responsible for generating foreign currency through arms smuggling, drug trafficking, gold smuggling, counterfeiting, and fraud. Revenue estimates for Office 39 range from $500 million to $2 billion annually. The operation is overseen by Kim's sister, Kim Yo-jong, ensuring that the regime's most sensitive revenue stream remains under direct family control. The second pillar is cybercrime. The Lazarus Group, a state-sponsored hacking unit operating under North Korean military intelligence, has accumulated over $5 billion in cumulative theft through cyber attacks targeting banks, cryptocurrency exchanges, and financial institutions worldwide. The group's most audacious operation was a $1.5 billion heist on the Bybit cryptocurrency exchange, a single attack that generated more revenue than many countries' annual defense budgets. The stolen cryptocurrency is laundered through a network of shell companies, mixing services, and decentralized exchanges designed to obscure the origin of funds, then converted into hard currency that flows back to the regime. The sophistication of these operations is not amateur. It is state-grade, conducted by trained military hackers using infrastructure provided by a national government, targeting civilian financial systems that were never designed to defend against attacks launched by a sovereign state. The third pillar is forced labor. North Korea exports workers to construction sites, factories, and logging operations in countries including Russia, China, and several African and Middle Eastern nations. These workers generate an estimated $1.2 to $2.3 billion annually but receive as little as 10% of their wages, with the remainder confiscated by the regime and routed directly to the leadership's accounts. The workers operate under conditions that international human rights organizations have described as modern slavery: no freedom of movement, no right to resign, no access to independent legal representation, and constant surveillance by regime minders who ensure compliance through threats against family members remaining in North Korea. Combined, These three revenue streams, Office 39, the Lazarus Group, and forced labor generate between $3 billion and $9 billion annually for a regime that faces comprehensive international sanctions, theoretically designed to prevent exactly this kind of income. The sanctions have not worked. The revenue continues. And Kim Jong Un's personal share of that revenue is limited only by his own appetite. When a nation's primary revenue streams are hacking, smuggling, and forced labor, is it still a country, or has it become the world's most heavily armed criminal enterprise? Tell us your perspective below. The lifestyle $30 million in alcohol, ski resorts, and gold foil cigarettes. And here is where the crime revenue meets the consumption, because Kim Jong Un does not merely accumulate wealth, he spends it with an extravagance that mirrors his childhood fantasies, scaled to the resources of a nation-state. The most revealing example is the Masikryong ski resort, built in 2013 at Kim's personal direction to replicate the Swiss Alps experience he enjoyed as a schoolboy in Bern. The resort features modern ski lifts, groomed slopes, and luxury accommodation constructed in a country where the majority of the population cannot afford adequate food, let alone recreational travel. The resort was designed to attract foreign tourists, but its primary function is clear. It exists because the supreme leader wanted to ski without leaving his country. Kim's car collection exceeds 100 European luxury vehicles, including armored limousines, a Maybach X650, a Rolls-Royce Phantom, and a recently acquired Mercedes-Benz SUV, all imported in direct violation of UN sanctions, banning luxury goods transfers to North Korea. In 2023, Russian President Putin personally gifted Kim an Urus limousine, Russia's answer to the Rolls-Royce, during a diplomatic visit that demonstrated how geopolitical alliances can circumvent sanctions designed to isolate the regime. Kim reportedly spends approximately $30 million annually on imported alcohol alone: Scotch whiskey, Hennessy cognac, Cristal champagne, and Bordeaux wine, a figure that exceeds the annual income of thousands of North Korean families combined. His cigarettes are wrapped in gold foil. His personal chef, Kenji Fujimoto, a Japanese sushi specialist who originally served Kim Jong-il, fled North Korea, but was eventually welcomed back by Kim Jong-un, a decision that reveals either genuine affection for a childhood companion or the supreme leader's absolute confidence that no one who enters his orbit can permanently escape it. The culinary program extends far beyond a single chef. The regime imports caviar, Kobe beef, Brazilian coffee, Parma ham, lobster, and Emmental cheese, the latter becoming such a personal obsession that Kim dispatched officials to France and Switzerland to learn authentic cheese-making techniques, creating a state-funded cheese production initiative driven entirely by one man's dietary preferences. Kim spent approximately $51.92 million in 2024 importing luxury goods to distribute as gifts to political allies: watches, electronics, liquor, and designer goods deployed as instruments of loyalty management in a system where allegiance is purchased rather than earned. The lifestyle is not merely excessive, it is institutional, funded by state revenue, enabled by sanctions evasion, and maintained by a system that treats the supreme leader's personal preferences as national priorities. The purge is how Kim protects his wealth by eliminating everyone who threatens it. Wealth of this magnitude, accumulated through these methods, requires a protection system that goes far beyond bank security and financial encryption. Kim Jong-un's fortune is protected by the same mechanism that protects his political power: the systematic elimination of anyone perceived as a threat. The most prominent victim was his own half-brother. In February 2017, Kim Jong-nam, the former heir apparent who had lived in exile for over a decade, was assassinated in Kuala Lumpur International Airport. Two women approached him and smeared VX nerve agent across his face, a military-grade chemical weapon so lethal that the amount used could have killed dozens of people. Kim Jong-nam died within 20 minutes. The assassination was widely attributed to the North Korean regime, and its message was unambiguous: exile does not provide safety, distance does not provide protection, and blood relation does not provide immunity. 2 years earlier, in 2013, Kim executed his own uncle Jang Song-thaek, the man who had served as Kim's primary political mentor during his early years in power and who was widely regarded as the second most powerful figure in North Korea. Jiang was publicly charged with treason, corruption, and factionalism, then executed in a manner designed to send a signal that no relationship, familial, political, or institutional, provides protection against the supreme leader's judgment. The execution was broadcast on state media, ensuring that every official in the country understood the consequences of perceived disloyalty. Since 2013, Kim has conducted a series of purges targeting high-ranking military officers, party officials, and intelligence operatives suspected of divided loyalty, eliminating potential challengers before they can organize opposition and ensuring that the financial networks, the military apparatus, and the intelligence services all answer to a single authority with no institutional counterweight. The protection extends to the next generation. Kim's daughter, Kim Jong-un, made her public debut in 2022 and is widely believed to be the chosen successor. Senior officials reportedly kneel when addressing her. A child who wears a Cartier watch and a Dior jacket valued at $1,900 in a country where the average citizen's annual income would not cover a single designer accessory. Kim's wife, Ri Sol-ju, a former singer turned fashion figure, wears Versace, Tiffany, Gucci, and carries Dior handbags in public appearances, luxury brands that most North Koreans have never heard of and will never encounter. The contrast is the point. The Kim family's visible consumption is not a failure of discretion. It is a deliberate display of status proof that the ruling family exists in a category so far above ordinary citizens that comparison is not merely futile, but conceptually impossible. The wealth is the power. The display is the message, and the purges ensure that no one who receives the message ever considers challenging it. The fortress, 100,000 guards, nuclear weapons, and a cult that makes him God. And here we arrive at the dimension that separates Kim Jong Un from every billionaire, every oligarch, and every head of state on the planet, because his wealth is protected not by financial regulations, legal structures, or private security firms. It is protected by a 100,000-strong military unit called the Supreme Guard Command, an elite force trained exclusively for the protection of the Kim family, equipped with cutting-edge weaponry and armored vehicles, and funded at priority levels that exceed any other military unit in the country. This is not a security detail. It is a private army loyal not to the state but to the person of the supreme leader, trained to kill and die on his command without question or hesitation. Behind the guards stands the nuclear arsenal. North Korea possesses an estimated 40 to 50 nuclear warheads and an expanding missile program capable of reaching targets across the Pacific. The nuclear weapons do not protect the country's borders in any conventional military sense. They protect Kim Jong Un's regime, ensuring that no external power can force regime change without risking nuclear retaliation. The weapons are not a deterrent against invasion. They are a guarantee of personal survival, the ultimate insurance policy for a man whose wealth, power, and life depend on maintaining a system that the entire international community has declared illegitimate. And beneath the military and the nuclear arsenal lies the deepest layer of protection, the cult of personality. The Kim dynasty has spent 3 generations constructing a belief system that presents the ruling family as divine, not merely powerful, but metaphysically superior to ordinary human beings. State media, education systems, public monuments, and mandatory rituals reinforce the narrative that the Kim family's authority is not political but cosmic, ordained by forces that transcend human governance and cannot be questioned, challenged, or reformed. This is the architecture that protects Kim Jong Un's fortune. Not bank vaults, not encryption, not lawyers. 100,000 soldiers, nuclear weapons, and a national religion that makes the supreme leader God. Unlike Elon Musk, who must operate within laws, or MBS, who must balance tribal politics, or the Ambanis, who must navigate democratic accountability, Kim answers to nothing and no one. His wealth is the country. His country is his wealth. And the system that maintains both will endure for exactly as long as the cult, the guards, and the warheads continue to function. That is not wealth management. That is the economics of absolute power, and no force on earth has yet proven capable of dismantling it from the outside. Is Kim Jong Un the richest person on earth when you count the resources he controls? Or is personal wealth meaningless when it cannot exist without the threat of nuclear annihilation? Your verdict in the comments. The wealth of Kim Jong Un reveals 3 strategic truths about what happens when financial power and political power merge with no institutional separation. First, Kim's financial empire demonstrates that the conventional metrics of wealth, net worth, liquid assets, portfolio value are meaningless when applied to an absolute ruler. His personal accounts hold an estimated $5 billion or more, but he controls a GDP of $26 to $32 billion, sits atop mineral reserves worth up to $10 trillion, and operates criminal revenue streams, generating $3 to $9 billion annually, all with zero oversight and zero accountability. Second, the combination of Office 39, the Lazarus Group, and forced labor exports reveals that North Korea has evolved from a failed state into the world's most sophisticated criminal enterprise, one that operates with the institutional resources of a national government and the impunity of a nuclear-armed sovereign state. Third, the purges, the assassination of his own brother, and the execution of his own uncle demonstrate that Kim's wealth protection system is not financial. It is existential, maintained through violence so extreme and so public that it eliminates not just threats, but the very concept of opposition. From a 7-year-old driving custom cars to a supreme leader commanding nuclear weapons, from 200 secret bank accounts to a hacking unit that has stolen over $5 billion, from $30 million in annual alcohol spending to a country where 45% of the population is starving. What you have seen today is the complete financial anatomy of the most dangerous fortune on Earth, wealth that is inseparable from power, protected by nuclear weapons, and maintained by a system that treats the elimination of family members as a routine cost of doing business. If this kind of deep analysis is valuable to you, hit like and subscribe. In the next episode, we will take you inside the hidden fortunes of the 5 most secretive dictators, still in power leaders, whose combined wealth rivals the GDP of Western nations, but whose financial networks have never been fully exposed.